Oh, hello and welcome. The one we talk about with Jamie Jakes. I am him, and we are here for another round of Idiot versus Insider, where I guess I am still the idiot, and Mr. James is still the NFL Insider because he had sideline tickets last week, and James, we've got a dunce cap on to start this program because you had a bad week. I've got good news for our viewers, James.
Well,
I had another great one.
They probably had a great week.
I had a great one. I was 5-2 last week. Tell me if this is a good streak. Last 5 weeks, James. I was 5-2 last week. Before then, I was 4-1-1, and then 4-2, and then 4-2, and then 5-2. That's 71%. I'm the hottest gambler alive, James.
That seems very profitable.
Yep.
You're welcome.
We are 12-3 in our matchups every single week. If this is your first time joining us, what goes on is James presents us a slate of games to bet on. I have a force bet on that game. I can agree with him, disagree with him, or pivot on his pick. I am 12-3 against him in that matchup, and I am 12-3 against the sports books this season so far in winning weeks in terms of units. I am the best gambler when it comes to the NFL in 2024, and there's nobody who can dispute that, I don't think, as far as I know. We do have some bad news, James. Bad news. Our Thursday night lock of the week that you forced me to pick loses. 49ers, they did not cover 2.5 against the Rams. A slight rain stymied those Californian teams. We did not see that coming because we did not get that weather report. It was not supposed to rain. And even if it was going to rain, I don't know if that would have changed our pick because it was a light drizzle that just turned these two offenses into absolute dog poop. We are not good on Thursday night. Neither of us are this season so far, even though you make us pick it every single week. So I can't wait to dig into the offseason and just figure out how we can fix that going forward.
Just got to go purely off of vibes from now on.
I tried that, though. I tried that, and it didn't work, James. So I don't know what we're going to do. Any more thoughts on the Niners and the Rams?
Oh, man, what a boring game to watch. I'm glad I was out at a dinner.
Yeah,
I saw the halftime score, and it was Niners up. I think it was 9-6, and I was like, sweet. And then Rams decided, hey, let's score points again. And I was like, oh, cool. Thanks, guys.
Yeah. The going back through the slate,
we don't have to. We really
week 15 recap. I feel like we should.
No,
we got some stuff to learn. Jets and Jags. I had the over 40.5, which was laughable from the very beginning. The Jets really did their part, as well as the Jags defense really did their part. They have no pass rush whatsoever. And Rodgers playing well. Season-long statistics would indicate he's about the 10th best quarterback in the NFL this year, which means he'll have a landing spot if he wants to play next season, if I had to guess. I told you Raj wasn't sitting out. For some reason, you thought so.
I'm shocked.
Yeah, didn't play. I'm not shocked. Jets defense gives up 25 to Heisman runner-up Mac Jones. Real story of the team with this Jets this year, James, is their defense just stinks. Brian Thomas is the best black receiver in the 2023 draft class, or 2024 draft class, and it's not even close. James, what are your thoughts on the Jets and the Jags?
Very happy that I've got Brian Thomas in our Dynasty League. I'll definitely say that. Yeah, I mean, I think it was a close game. Just the Jags the Jets did a lot better than I thought they were going to be. The Jags were who I thought they were. Classic post game quote right there. They were who we thought they are. We let them off the hook, Jamie. We let them off the hook. So I mean, I'm not upset with that loss. There's a couple other bets that I'm very upset about the loss. I'll tell you.
Yep. Speaking of which, Dolphins, Texans. I had the Texans -3, and I told you exactly how this game was going to go.
Yeah.
I nailed it. I said Tua was going to have a big downturn coming off of his IR stint. He'd been balling, but he hadn't faced a pass defense like the Texans. The Dolphins can't run the football, so they're pretty easy to bet against in this situation. Tua was 4.9 yards per attempt, 1 touchdown, 3 interceptions on the game. I did tell you the Texans would struggle to score a little bit, but they were going to be able to score enough to cover that 3, and that's exactly what happened, James.
Yeah, brutal week for Tua. It doesn't help that Waddle went down. Now Tyreek Hill's tweeting out cryptic.
Who could have seen that coming? Waddle going down? Crazy.
Not me. He was completely healthy throughout his entire college career. So maybe the Dolphins training staff needs to work on some things. Also, Tyreek Hill is now disgruntled and saying, "Let me go" on Twitter. So it seems like a massive collapse for the Dolphins. But if you want to hold Waddle stock long term, probably a good time to buy.
Yeah, I'd say. Moving on to a game that you were at live, sidelines, James. Cowboys, Panthers. This was my closest win of the week. Every other win I had was laughable, easy peasy lemon squeezy. 43 over, which barely hit with like a last second kind of meaningless field goal out of the Cowboys. Dowdle, Ceedee, Cooper Rush basically covered this for me by themselves. Elite quarterback. Bryce Young did not look elite, but I don't know if it was necessarily his fault. Not a lot of blocking going on in front of him. And then Liggett, of course, goes down with a groin injury pretty early on in that game. James, you were on the sidelines. What were your takeaways for this one?
Yes, I was definitely down on the sidelines for the entire game for sure. Should have put me in. We were lucky. We got some pregame passes. So shout out to the old Alabama connections for that. Honestly, biggest notes of the game that I had was Bryce Young once again has a BS interception where it just magically bounces off of somebody and lands in somebody's arms. I mean, we got to start creating a stat for it needs to be like an infield fly rule in baseball. Where it's like, yeah, the interception is happening, but there's just no way that you did that because it just happened to bounce off of 6 people and land in somebody's lap. It's crazy.
PFF does something similar to that. They grade turnover worthy passes. So instead of the result, they grade the actual, pass, which is one of the very few worthwhile metrics and statistics that come out of Pro Football Focus.
Shout out PFF. Other interesting thing to note, CeeDee Lamb changed shoes at halftime and then got better. So he was wearing those like Kobe Grinches, and then all of a sudden he was amazing again. Honestly, I don't feel like the Cowboys won this game. I think the Panthers just lost it. I mean, it was crazy how great the Panthers played in some moments and then atrocious that they played in others. And they kept playing atrociously at the wrong time.
I agree, James. Moving on to the Bills and the Lions game. I said 54.5 sounds like a lot of points. That's way, way too low. And it was. If that total was 75, it would have been way, way too low. 90 points scored in this game.
Crazy.
Too easy. Onside kick math out of Dan Campbell doesn't math up. Gotten a few arguments over Twitter about, they couldn't stop the Bills all game. Like, not true. There were 2 drives in that game, I think, out of like 9 possessions for the Buffalo Bills on offense, not counting the last drive where they just took a knee after the second failed onside kick attempt. The onside kick works at about less than a 7% rate this season. I'm not great at math, but if 2 Bills drives end up in 0 points, that's going to be slightly. I don't think they had over 20 possessions in that game, James. So I'm not great at math, but and I think Dan Campbell kind of came out afterwards and said, that was not the best decision out of any of all time, which I like about Dan Campbell as he makes egregious errors and he fixes it going forward. He does do a lot of self-scouting and self-reflection and changes things for the future. It's just the football world didn't see him go through that learning process early on in his career because they were just losing. They were 0-10 and 1, right? So we didn't see him go through those like learning processes. I would say the timeout situation was even more egregious when the Bills had the ball with time left and the Lions decide not to take the timeout, and they basically the game's over because they have all 3 timeouts. I think they go home with 2 timeouts in their pocket. Never good when you're in a close game and you're losing going home with timeouts. Worst coach game for Dan Campbell this season by a long shot. My takeaway on this, I would lose McNeil. Big loss for the Lions. I think the Lions are now the third best team in the NFL. They're no longer the first best team in the NFL. People who are saying they have no chance of winning the Super Bowl, I think, are overreacting significantly. And we'll see them play against the Bears this week, see how they bounce back. But right now, I think it's Eagles, obviously Bills, and then the Lions. And I don't think number 4 is particularly close. James, what's your takeaway on that game?
I got a shout out to Dan Campbell here, because that might have just saved my futures championship belt right there. That might have sealed Sean Payton Coach of the Year, to be honest. I feel like that's going to weigh really heavy on a lot of media voters, which is great for me. So that was my main takeaway, was we're back in the money with Sean Payton, baby.
Yeah. Patriots, Cardinals. We both missed this one, James. I had Pats at 5.5. Cardinals are bad stopping the run, and the Patriots couldn't really run the ball very well. So it's just one of those things. You charge to the game when you bet on bad teams. Sometimes these things happen. I don't think my process was terrible on this one. Like, I've admitted a couple of my losses the past couple of weeks, that was a bad take I had a couple of times. This one I don't feel too bad about. Just, I think, kind of bad coaching out of the Patriots, which, we'll see if Mayo can improve in his head coaching role there. Pat's touchdown even came in garbage time. They just feel like a really, really soft team to me, James. So, tough to bet on them, but you got to have big nuts and put your money where your mouth is, or put your money where your nuts are sometimes on these games. And sometimes you look like an idiot because of it. And this is one of those instances, James.
It was like Kyler Murray thought that the XP transferred over to his Call of Duty account the way he was playing that game.
Yeah.
Double XP weekend, bonus points for scoring touchdowns. That's what Kyler heard. And he said, all right, bet I need some new skins.
Yep. Moving on to Packers, Seahawks. Packers -2.5, coming off of the Detroit flu. 10 days after Detroit flu is worthless. And I don't think a lot of the guys that were causing the flu are really even playing anymore for the Detroit Lions. So probably be fading the Detroit flu going forward. Packers look like a really, really good team, which is another example of like, hey, Lions just beat the Packers. They beat them twice this season. Obviously, one away, one at home. And that's why I think the Lions are still one of the best teams in the NFL. Seahawks are not. Seahawks don't look good. Geno goes down in this one. He was playing all right, to be fair to you. 15 out of 19 in receptions, but it was only for 149 yards, which is like just over 7 yards per attempt, which is okay, not great. 0 touchdowns, 1 interception. Packers dominate from beginning to end on this one, James.
Yeah, if I had known the Packers were coming out in those all-white uniforms, I would have bet the Packers. My God, those things are slick.
They look a lot better than the Vikings all-whites.
Amazing. Yeah.
Amazing.
Vikings Stormtrooper, take that out of here. I mean, this one is kind of, the second Geno Smith goes down, you're like, all right, well, that one's off the board. That was just the vibe on that one. There's no chance without Geno. Sam Howell is an atrocious quarterback. Not shocked that he didn't play well.
Yep. Ooh, moving on. Done recapping. Let's move on to the Week 16 slate. You got us narrowed down to 5 games, which I think this is the first 5-game slate. Maybe the second 5.
They get smaller the better the book gets. Unfortunately.
Okay. That's why you're betting on 7 games, right? Last week, James, right?
Yeah.
So you're trying to consolidate, which is smart when you're not seeing the board very well. What's not smart is that you haven't done very good in your self-scouting, James, and you've got another pick for Thursday night. The Broncos at the Chargers. Will be live streaming this one from the Ezo Chiropractic offices in Grapevine, Texas. The over-under set to 42 points, so pretty low on this one. Broncos 4-game win streak. Chargers 2-game losing streak. Surtain trending to play. which is very, very good. And the Chargers have a couple of injuries in the cornerback position, James.
They do. And I don't think any of them are playing. I really like the Broncos in this one. I know we've said vibes are what we should be doing for Thursday, but I've got some statistics. First off, passing is the highest grade for this Chargers offense. It's also the highest grade for the Broncos defense. That's a huge thing immediately. Denver and Chargers rank relatively even according to PFF on their defensive rankings. I think these are completely even teams in my book. And I think you know where I'm going with this with coin flips. And I think when you have the head coach of the year on your team, that helps out even more. So I'm taking the Denver Broncos, and I'm taking them at plus 130.
Okay. Denver Broncos plus money line bet out of James. I agree, but I kind of disagree how you got there. You're saying these teams are even. I totally disagree, James. I think the Broncos are better football squad. Broncos 10th in points per game versus 20th for the Chargers. Point differential, Broncos 6th, Chargers 12th. Oh. What do we need to do to win football games, James?
Run the ball and
stop the damn run. EPA per run on offense, Broncos 17th, Chargers 23rd. EPA per run on defense, Broncos second best in the NFL, Chargers 20th. So we got 17th offense versus 20th defense. And on the other side, Chargers 23rd ranked run offense against the second best run defense in the NFL. Broncos defense, how elite is it? First in EPA per play this season at a metric of minus 0.20. Historically, season long, only better defensive teams since 2019. 2019 Patriots, 2023 Browns, and Ravens were better in that metric. The Broncos defense is truly elite, and for that reason, I am taking the Broncos, but I'm taking them at plus 2.5. Moving on to Sunday.
Sounds like a lock of the week.
No. Sunday, where we handicap games. Well, the Eagles at Commanders. Commanders are getting 3.5 points at home. The over-under set to 45.5. We got a high of 32 degrees, low winds, low chance of precipitation as we're sitting right here. This is the 2 seed Eagles versus the 7 seed Commanders. I believe we did get an injury report. Saquon went down last game kind of late, landed on his shoulder and head. I don't think he is on the injury report for this one, James, as I'm pulling it up right now. He is. But he's not injury related. So not injury related, just a G day, just a rest day late in the season, DNP, along with a couple of the other OGs, Becton and AJ Brown, both DNP, but not injury related. James, what do you got on this one?
Yeah, so you also got to factor in Hurts's finger here, which I do think
left hand.
Still, the guy runs the ball a lot, and you still got to catch a ball from shotgun, which they run fairly often. So even if you're taking under center for the tush push, that ball getting slammed up in there, probably not a fun thing to have happen. So I will circle that as a potential interesting injury. Talking about statistics between these two teams, Eagles' run defense is the sort of only crux that I can find within their team. They're 12th in run defense. Commanders like running the ball a lot. They're pretty effective with it. However, Eckler out, that one's kind of almost nullified in my opinion. They are very good at shutting down the pass, but on the flip side, not passing the ball very well. Jalen Hurts with a hurt finger, pun intended. I think that's another question mark. Last thing I'll say about these groups, I did think there was a very interesting interaction on the Eagles sideline the other week where the coordinator actually told head coach to back off and said, hey, this is my group. I'm dealing with it. Thought that was weird. Thought that was very weird. Heard it was very weird is what I'll say as well. Yeah. I think it's just a classic trap game is what I'm going to say here. I think, the teams are at interesting spots. Eagles are definitely the best team in the NFL, but you got to also lose a game. I don't think they're going to be able to lose 0 games for the rest of the season. I really like that the Commanders have just done this thing this year where they say, you know what? We don't need our stinking defense because it sucks already. We'll just score a ton of points. I love the Cliff Kingsbury versus Kellen Moore offensive coordinator battle for this. So I'm taking the over. I think these teams are going to score a ton of points on both sides of the ball. I think it'll be actually really close. I almost took the Commanders in this one, but I think this one's just going to be a high-scoring game overall.
Over 45.5, James. Hey, I like where your head's at here. I have the Eagles slightly better ranked, by the way. I think they're 8th in EPA per play this season based off of my metrics. 4 weeks ago, it was an 8-point game at Philadelphia. Do a classic 4.5-point swing for home field advantage. That's how you get to 3.5. So betting on a side on this game is pretty tough. In that game, Commanders had cluster injuries at tackle. Seibert was out, their kicker, and Marshawn Lattimore was also out. So he'll be in for this game. He didn't get targeted last week, but hey, I'm not too worried about it. I don't think it's the same Marshawn Lattimore that we have grown accustomed to over the past several years in his career. Eagles 20th in pressure rate, so they do have a pretty darn good to elite defense this season, but they are unable to pressure the quarterback at a great rate. Jaden Daniels, 6th best in EPA per drop back when not under pressure. I expect Saquon to be good to go. Points per game so far between these two teams. Eagles are 26.4 average. Commanders are 28.3. Not great at math, James, but I think that's, if you add those two up, over 50, right?
Yep.
And the over-under set to 45.5, okay? Jalen can play in the cold. Daniels has already played at the cold at home this season. They both look fine. I'm not worried about the cold weather whatsoever, and I think it might even help Saquon early on in this game if the defense isn't really willing to lay down the lumber. So yeah, James, I agree. Over 45.5 on this one, James. I love that.
Huge.
Fine. Moving on. Huge for the lock of the week, potentially. Huge. We need one. One more to have a winning season on lock of the week. One more win was what we need. Yep. Last 3 weeks. Jags at the Las Vegas Raiders. The Raiders are actually a point favorite.
Yep.
Which is bizarre. Over under 39.5. Tank for Sador signs on Monday night for the Vegas Raiders. Be careful what you wish for. Max Crosby out for the season with the season-ending injuries on IR. Jags get blown out by Raj and the boys last week. What do you got on this one?
Yeah, so this line actually swung. It started off as Jaguars favored and now has moved to Raiders favored. So that kind of tells me people just think this game's a toss-up money-wise. So I actually wanted to bet the Raiders side. Now that it's swung so much, I want to get on the Jaguars side. I don't have a massive analysis for this. I think it's pretty close to a coin flip, but I think there's just one area that, we talk about all the time. It's the run game. Jaguars have a massive advantage in the run game. I don't really think the Raiders can pass the ball very well. And if they need to win this game, they need to run the ball. Jaguars can definitely run the ball. They still have Brian Thomas on their sideline. Mac Jones, Heisman runner-up, as we've talked about. So yep. I like Jaguars at plus 100 right now.
I like it, James. So, like you said, the Raiders aren't going to be able to pass the ball well. Desmond Ridder ranks 62nd in EPA per drop back so far this season. Now, I did have to deselect the 100 passing targets or 100 passing attempts to get that statistic. So for comparison's sake, Heisman runner-up Dan Jones 52nd. So much, much better than Desmond Ridder so far this season. Raiders last place in EPA per run, just like you said. Jags 13th worst. Okay, so 12 spots better than the Raiders, so that's good if you're betting on the Jags. Raiders, worst coach team in the league. If you actually watched that game, it was atrociously coached, I would say. One of the worst coached games in the history of the NFL. Had a delay of game in just like the worst time that you could have it. They were nowhere even near ready for the play on Monday night. Raiders are also coming off of a short rest on Monday night, which bodes well for the Jaguars, I would say. Home field for the Raiders at this point worth a negative, I would say, when you got fans with signs saying that they want to tank for Sador. That's not a good sign that they're going to be super loud on third down. James, if I had to guess. Nope. Points per game, Jags slightly better, 26th versus 29th. Point differential, Jags slightly better, 27th versus the 31st. It's clear these Jags are a better team. I am going to take the Jags, and I'm going to take that point.
You're going to take the point? Okay.
So
you
three.
Get it at -105 right now, so +1 at -105. Take it.
3 basically agreements so far, more or less.
This is huge.
So we're simpatico, and I like that, James. I like this slate.
The Unimind.
Maybe you just stole my notes last night is what I'm thinking. 49ers.
I've been hacked into your computer for months. I don't know how you haven't noticed.
49ers at Dolphins. Dolphins are 1-point favorites. The over-under set to 44.5. This is the battle of the 6 and 8s. Both pretty much done for the season. Long flight for the 49ers. What do you got on this one, James?
I wanted to deep dive into statistics, but I think there's only one statistic that matters. Mike McDaniels is atrocious against playing teams that are over 500. Good news for him. 49ers are not over 500. So I'm taking the Dolphins. I'm taking them at -1.
Okay. So this is going to be our first disagreement, blatant disagreement so far. And it's just because what we saw last week. The Dolphins played the Texans, which is the second best in EPA per pass on defense. So against the pass, they're a elite pass stopping team. Niners are the 7th best. So we're getting like a diet version of this Texans defense. Dolphins can't run the ball.
Sugar-free pass coverage.
Exactly. Dolphins can't run the ball even when they try. It's pretty bad. Dolphins struggle against the pass on defense, 19th in EPA per pass defending the pass. 49ers are 11th best in EPA per pass on offense, so that's a good, solid matchup there. So I'm going to take the money line. 49ers +100, James. That's even money, and I'll take it.
Wow. I can't believe you just take a money line.
I think it's my second money. I think I am 1-0 on money line picks this season. So
hey, what's my record when picking +300? 1-0.
Congratulations. Buccaneers at Cowboys. Team you just saw play very, very up front and close. Yep. Cowboys are getting 4 points at home. The over is set to 48.5. This is Sunday night. Mike Evans, by the way, 251 yards away from his like 45th 1,000 consecutive yard receiving season, James.
That's amazing. Well, good for him. Well, I looked back at some of the statistics for these teams, and I wanted to compare some similar teams, right? So in recent games, the Buccaneers are ranked relatively close to some of the opponents that the Cowboys have had. They've played against the Giants. The Cowboys have. They put up 20 points against a pretty bad defense. I was like, oh, that's not good. They also hung 20 on the Bengals. Now, they hung a lot of points on the Panthers, but the Panthers are another tier or two below the defensive rankings that we have for the Buccaneers here, right? And let's be honest, the Buccaneers, not a bad defensive team. They're not great, but they're not bad. They're in the lower half, but not by a ton. Buccaneers, similar team, also played the Giants recently. They put 30 points up against the Giants. So I go, okay, all right, we've got some data points here. They also put up 49 on the Chargers last week. This over-under is set to 48. So if the Buccaneers just score as many points as they did against the Chargers, they cover this on their own. I think both of these teams can put up points, I think by the end of the third quarter, they'll have hung at least 50, and this over will have already hit. So I'm taking the over. Almost thought about an alternate on the over here, but I'll just take the over 48 right now.
Okay. I don't mind that. You know, when you're playing against the Cowboys defense, no over is safe, right? You always got a shot when you got the Cowboys playing defense out there. Points per game, 4th versus 19th. Point differential, 9th versus 25th. Average margin of victory, 2nd versus 20th. Penalties, 9th versus 29th. All in the favor of, drumroll please, Buccaneers. Okay. Cowboys, last place in EPA per rush on defense. Buccaneers, 8th in EPA per rush on offense. So you're getting one of the best running offenses going up against one of the worst rushing defense. And I think we already discussed what do you have to do to win football games, James. Cowboys, 15th in EPA per pass on defense. Buccaneers are 6th best in EPA per pass on offense. So I do think the Buccaneers are going to light up the scoreboard. I am not convinced that the Cowboys will also partake. So I sort of kind of like that over, but I really love betting on Baker Mayfield in what'll be a neutral field. It'll be at Jerry World. I think standing room tickets are like $12 right now, which is the most I've ever seen in Cowboys home field history.
Yikes.
So I'm going to take the Buccaneers to cover. Like I said, average margin of victory. The Buccaneers are 2nd best in the NFL. So when they do win, they tend to win by a margin. So I'm not worried about them covering 4 at all. Give me the Buccaneers -4, James.
Huge.
Okay, so we have a lot of things to potentially agree on here.
Yeah.
We both liked Heisman runner-up Mac Jones, right? Taking out the dead in the water. The Raiders are just so bad.
We like that one. We like the over on Washington Eagles.
I do like that over. I will say I like that over. But, I mean,
can we really make the lock of the week the Jaguars? Can we do that?
I think we can. I really think we can. I'm going to go ahead and
throw it on my board. I've put it on my board, so clearly I'm invested in it.
I'm going to go ahead and throw out the Thursday night Broncos Chargers, even though I really do like that. But just like I said, we've been seeing crap shoots on Thursday night. You just don't know what you're going to get out of these teams. So Eagles Commanders over 45.5. The only thing that's kind of keeping me off that one, James, is the fact that these two teams played whatever it was 4 weeks ago, and it wasn't a very high scoring game. And I know I already said like the reason I like the over is because cluster injuries or whatever, but divisional matchup, I'm worried that these two teams on defense are just going to be able to kind of shut each other down, which is kind of what gets me off of that, it being the lock of the week, even though I really like it. And yeah, I just think the Jags are a better coached team. I think the Vegas Raiders have nothing to play for. Their leader on defense and their leader on the team is out for this game. Ritter's starting, right? It's not going to be.
I honestly just have it as a question mark. I haven't heard either way, to be honest with you.
I haven't heard either, but if you got a poorly coached team,
I would assume Ritter. Like if I have to guess, right?
I don't think it's confirmed, but I don't think it's like I don't think it's even under question.
I think honestly, Tom Brady's going to come out of retirement and just be like, yeah, I'm starting.
Well, then we're in trouble. If Tom suits it up for this one, we might be in trouble.
According to the New York Times, Desmond Ridder is starting.
Okay. Yeah. Worst coach team in the NFL, and it's not like it's a big spread or anything. And yeah, it'll just be the Brian Thomas show. The Mac Jones, Brian Thomas show. Best black wide receiver in this draft class. 2nd best overall, James.
Are we doing categories for every racial grouping?
If you want to.
Or just African American versus Caucasian? Is that our 2 categories?
Well, I mean, when it comes to the receiver position, outside of Puka Nacua, the handsome Polynesian man, it's pretty much a two race
Best
a 2-race race.
Asia-Pacific receiver. Best
So
Western European receiver. Best Western European receiver.
lock of the week, Jags, and I think we're gonna call it +1.
Okay, I'm fine with that.
Because if we get a draw, that's also if we get a push, that's also a profitable season locked in.
Yeah.
So Jags +1
at -105.
Lock of the week. Feel really, really good about it. The Raiders really stink, and I think the Jags are going to enjoy their time in Vegas. James, anything to tell the audience?
No, have a happy holidays. You'll probably see us next week with more money in our pockets, so we can go buy those last-minute lotto scratchers for stocking stuffers. So that's my plan, please.
Yep. We have no idea when we're going to post one next week. We will get one out next week. Probably not going to get one out for week 18. So we might have a 2-for-1 special on week 17. We might have week 17 and the look ahead lines for week 18 on that episode. So look out for that probably post-Christmas episode of the show. Thank you guys for watching.
Little Boxing Day action for you, America.
Yeah. Please subscribe, become a premium member so you know the rules of the drinking game and everything. Thank you guys for watching. Nobody's seen the board better than me, so hop on board. I'm pretty confident about it, James. Thank you. See you next time.